composed of various government representatives concerned, the Government Information Service, Education Department, Social Welfare Department, and so on.
Others just as critical of government's efforts produce their own anti-AIDS publicity. Mike Souza had a friend write some radio spots and started plugging the anti-AIDS message more than 2 months before the government launched its campaign.
There is a disease spreading throughout the world that preys on temptation, lives through seduction, and breeds death wherever it goes. It's called AIDS. There is no cure for it at the moment. The only protection from it is common sense. AIDS. It's the serious side to a casual relationship.
It's basically what the government will come off with what we call an API announcement. They will write a couple of paragraphs and say, well, do with it what you want. So you sit there and you read the 4 lines, and that's it. So, I mean, this deserves a little more than that. It's much more serious than anybody thinks it is. I mean, AIDS is such a worldwide problem. World Health Organization think it's a serious enough problem. The English are starting to test people going into the country. I mean, they must be really serious about this, you know. And up to now, Hong Kong really just had a couple of announcements saying, here's a hotline to call. So you call the hotline, and most of the time there's nobody at the end of that. You've got to put your name and telephone number down or call back the next day, and then have someone pretty much grill you.
See, I mean, I saw that same API that Mike's talking about, and I didn't understand it. You know, if you think you've contracted AIDS, call this number. I mean, I didn't know what it was about. So I did some homework, and being a writer, I thought I could do a far better job than that.
What do you think of the government's campaign so far?
I think the print campaign is good in that it's informative, okay? With the TV commercial, I don't understand it, okay? You've got 5 different messages. You've got sort of cardboard cutout men. I don't see any women there. I don't see any children there. And they say it's a disease that's not just, it's a disease that can be contracted by anyone, right? But you have cardboard cutouts of men, no women, no babies.
But also the print campaign, if you watch what they did, it took a full page of the South China Morning Post to run the campaign. How many times you get to buy a full page in the South China Morning Post or any other paper? There's no way the paper's going to let you have.
The Post donated it free.
Donated it free. But, I mean, they're not going to donate free space every day of the week. You know, and if you put it on once, you really have to continue doing this. And they can't do it in a small space. You can't do it like in a quarter page, for instance. You can't get all that information into the ad.
This is the commercial Hans Eberg was talking about.
AIDS is a killer disease for which there is no cure. AIDS is a sexually transmitted disease. AIDS is not restricted to homosexuals. It can be passed from man to woman and woman to man. An AIDS carrier may not know they have the disease. The symptoms may not appear for years. This means that when a person has sex, they're not having sex with just one partner, but with everybody that partner has had sex with for the last 7 years, any one of whom could be an AIDS carrier. AIDS is a pyramid of death.
To explain the concept, Dr. S.H. Lee.
In our leaflet, emphasize the need to avoid promiscuous sexual relationship with any person, to reduce the number of sexual partners, and have in our message a statement to the effect that when one has sexual contact with another person, they are not having sexual contact with that particular person, but they are having sexual contact with the partners of that particular person in the past 7 years. That's why this kind of pyramid concept is built up. In other words, well, we have to make sure that the number of sexual partners should be reduced to just one faithful sexual partner, and to make sure that in case of sexual intercourse, to adopt the use of safe practice of sexual practice.
Dr. Lee was also asked why only male figures were represented.
This is a kind of a graphic design, but I think to get the message across is not just based on one leaflet. Actually, we have been trying to correct this misconception. In fact, when you listen to the announcement of public interest in television, didn't you say that it affects both men and women?
Yes, but what you're seeing still are figures of men.
Well, I think the important thing also, the verbal statement is very effective. People listen to the statement, knows exactly that it is not a disease confining just to men.
In part 2 of Focus, we look at the services provided by the government in their campaign against AIDS. The AIDS counseling clinic used to run from 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon, Mondays through Fridays. It now runs till 8 at night. Last year, the clinic received about 15 calls a day. At the end of last month, the staff was taking a call every 6 minutes. That's about 130 calls a day. In the last 2 weeks of April, the maximum number of calls received in one day was 160. What do these callers want to find out?
Some of them are information seeking, mode of transmission, whether or not they can get AIDS by having, well, just casual contact, by having, for instance, make use of public toilets and so on. Others are, for instance, because of some sexual encounters with prostitutes, whether or not they have the danger of getting the disease. And the others are, well, information on how to avoid transmitting the infection to other members of the family. The general distribution is that among those callers, homosexuals, what we call the high-risk groups, the main high-risk groups, homosexuals is about 17%. And then the heterosexuals also in the high-risk groups, about 30%. Now, the remaining callers are composed of largely members of the general public. They are not of the high-risk group. Our counseling clinic, they are manned by senior health nursing staff. Now, these are already specially trained in the way of giving counseling advice, and they are also specially trained by our physicians, experienced in dealing with AIDS, and also they have been taught